trás e não trate de lugar comum.
Okay. Her name is Iris, and she wants to know that you've already written books that they're not about supernatural things and characters. She wants to know how you migrated from so-called regular books to the supernatural ones.
Right.
Johnny.
Yeah. Most of my stories are drawn from my own life experiences. I mean, really, almost all of them. My very first book, Baby 19, was about a girl really struggling in her adolescence and through high school, and it very much mirrored what I was going through at that age. And because of that, because I usually take my own life experiences, when I wrote The Immortals, I mentioned a little bit earlier, I drew from this time of grief that I had just gone through. Spooky. So again, I know it looks like it was a really big transition into something different, but for me, it was just, again, taking from my own life and drawing from my own life experience. And I wanted to explore this idea of grief and losing people and how we move on, and the idea of immortality and the soul's journey, and the best way to do that would be in a supernatural, paranormal format. And so the themes of the books that I wrote about were all the themes that I was struggling with and thinking about and trying to answer these questions for myself, and they're all things that have been interested in for a really long time. I just found a way to take all those themes and put it into a story. Am I doing that?
Ela respondeu que sempre parte da experiência pessoal dela, né? Principalmente pelo sofrimento, daí ela ter mudado para essa temática supernatural, como é sobreviver a sofrimentos e perdas, essa parte de transição que ela passava, aquela experiência da vida dela. Então ela lutava com uma resposta sobre mortalidade, como perder uma pessoa, e através de um sofrimento pessoal, ela começou a se interessar por esse tipo de terapia e escreveu sobre todo mundo.
Hi, my name is Leandro, and I'm a writer of this book, The Angel's Valley. And I want to know, we know the difference about the book market in Brazil and the United States. And I want to know, how was your beginning to write a book, to find a company to publish your book, the promise that you had in the beginning to sell, to become a writer that you are now, something like that.
First, congratulations on your book, because that's a really, really big accomplishment, as I'm sure you know how hard it is to write a book, so it's a big deal. Congratulations. It actually was a pretty tough journey, and I had no idea how difficult it would be to get published. Back when I first got serious about writing in 2001. I was working as a flight attendant in New York City. 9/11 happened. We got huge pay cuts. I knew my job would never be the same, so it was time to finally go after this dream. But, going after the dream, I had no idea how to do that. I just knew that I had a story that I'd always wanted to write, and so I started writing it. I didn't have friends that were writers. The internet wasn't really fully functioning in 2001 like it is now, so there was very little information out there. So I was just kind of writing in this bubble, thinking I was the only one that wanted to be a writer. And then when I finished my book, I had no idea what I was doing, and so I just sent it out to all these publishers, thinking, okay, let's see which one I decide I want. Okay, that's not how it works, as we all know. So really, it took me about 2.5 years of learning how to get published, and learning how to write a book that could be published, because that first book I sent out was terrible. I just didn't know it was terrible because I had no idea what I was doing. So I got a lot of rejections, which everybody does. J.K. Rowling was rejected. Stephanie Meyer was rejected. It is just part of the business. It's very subjective. It's very difficult. And those rejections hurt really bad. I'm not going to pretend that they don't. But they're also going to prove to you how bad you want it. You're either going to stop at that point, or you're just going to keep going. And for me, it just made me stubborn. I said, okay, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna learn what it's gonna take to get this done. So it just made me more serious about it. So I took all kinds of writing classes. I revised that book so many times. And I finally, through a friend, introduced me to an agent. He read it. And he gave me the best advice of anybody at all during that whole 2.5 years. He told me to read a book called Story by Robert McKee. If anyone in here is a writer and anyone in here has problems with plotting, because that was my problem, I highly recommend that book. And I'm sure it's translated into Portuguese because he's a huge Hollywood screenwriting guru. And by like page 25, I knew what I was doing wrong. And so I took my book and I was ruthless with it. I cut out, you know, you have these little things that you write and you think they're really clever. They're not all necessary though, you know. If it's not moving the plot forward, get rid of it. So I was very ruthless with the manuscript by that point because I was very serious about getting published. I took about 3 weeks and completely revised it and sent it in. And then finally, you know, after 2.5 years, I figured it out, and we sold that first book to St. Martin's Press in America, and a 2 big deal. And I've been writing for them ever since. I mean, at this point, I am in it with them for 23 books, 16 that are actually in stores now, and 3 that are finished and in various stages of production. As for the market differences, I can't say I know the Brazilian market very well. I feel really grateful that The Immortals was embraced immediately and by such a great group of readers. I mean, obviously the American market is a very, very large market. But there's all kinds of books being published in America right now. I think like here, the fantasy books are very popular at the moment, but they're still publishing books that are based on more contemporary themes as well. And what is so great right now is my first book was published in 2005. I've watched this market for teens grow in such a big way. The market was so much smaller back in 2005 when my first book was published. And I think it's great because it just shows how many teens are reading and how many stories that can be told. Because when you go to the bookstore, you know, in America, the teen shelves are overflowing with books, and they're all different. They're all about something different. There's something for everybody in there. So I think it's a very encouraging, optimistic time to be writing for teens. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, a lot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. I know that was a lot to keep track of, but...
Try to remember everything. Bom, ela disse que sempre foi difícil, né, para ela começar, ela falando inclusive do mercado, e ela sempre quis escrever, mas ela não tinha noção de como escrever, de como ela poderia fazer um livro rentável, como ela poderia entrar nesse mercado, né? Então ela começou a escrever e mandar tudo que ela escrevia para as editoras para tentar ver se ela conseguia, isso foi a partir de 2001, se ela conseguia alguém para editar os livros dela. Então ela passou mais ou menos 2 anos e meio nessa tentativa e foi rejeitada muitas vezes, né? Então as pessoas não se interessavam pelo livro, então ela diz que todo mundo passa por isso, que é natural, que as pessoas vão tentando e nem sempre tem as portas abertas, né? Então a rejeição é parte aí do processo da parte de escrever mesmo, né? Bom, e aí ela continuou contando, até que uma amiga conhecida lhe apresentou um agente que indicou que ela lesse alguma coisa sobre Robert McKee. Robert McKee, que ela indica que todos que pretendem escrever leiam alguma coisa sobre ele. Já lá na página 25, ela já viu que ela estava escrevendo tudo errado, que ela estava fazendo uma estrutura totalmente errada, e ela começou a revisar. Ela demorou mais ou menos 3 semanas para revisar tudo que ela havia escrito para mandar para uma próxima publicação. E aí sim, ela começou a desenvolver esse trabalho, se tornar conhecida. Então,